Hi, today I wanted to talk about insulin resistance, PCOS, and why I chose the carnivore diet, aka why the carnivore diet is good if you have PCOS and insulin resistance. If you don't know me, my name is Echo, and I create videos about how a normal, everyday, average person can put in the work and see results. I used to be paralyzed by the gap between where I was and where I wanted to be. But then I realized everybody has to start somewhere, so let's get to work. So what is insulin resistance? I was diagnosed with PCOS and insulin resistance quite a while ago now. And the thing about it is I never really looked up what it was. I just took it at face value. Oh, there are parts of my body and they are resistant to insulin, so that means that my body is not working correctly. And that's about as much thought as I gave it. So for my working definition of what insulin resistance is, I actually took Dr. Benjamin Bikman's definition. So Dr. Benjamin Bikman is not a practicing doctor, but he is a research doctor based out of BYU, and he exclusively studies insulin and metabolic health. There are actually two parts that go with insulin resistance. The first part is that you have cells within your body that are resistant to insulin. And that's where I think I stopped, and that's where I think most people actually stop. They understand that certain parts of their body, certain cells within their body are resistant to insulin. But there's actually a second part that I didn't even know about, didn't even think about. And that is when you're diagnosed with insulin resistance, there is also the presence of hyperinsulinemia. Okay, so now that I knew there was two parts to insulin resistance, I was like, what the heck is hyperinsulinemia? So I just looked it up, and it simply means that there is more insulin in your bloodstream than is considered normal. So why does this happen? It actually happens because of the way our body works, and it actually happens because there are cells in our body that become resistant to insulin, mainly our fat, liver, and muscle cells. So insulin is a storing hormone. What it does is when your blood sugar goes up, insulin is released to try to store that sugar in our fat, muscle, and liver cells to be used as energy later. But when these cells are desensitized to insulin, it can't do its job. And your blood sugar still needs to go down, or it could get dangerous. So your body's like, hey, my blood sugar is too high, release more insulin. And so your body tries to do the job by releasing more insulin, meaning that your insulin in your bloodstream is higher than what is considered normal because insulin is not allowed to do its job because you have cells that are resistant to insulin. So insulin resistance creates hyperinsulinemia. This is where the problem starts. So I always thought of my body as a whole, and our body just doesn't work that way. It's made of a bunch of different parts, a bunch of different cells, and they all do different things. So when you are insulin resistant, there are certain cells in your body that are predisposed to becoming insulin resistant. These cells are our fat cells, our muscle cells, and our liver cells. But on the other side of the coin, if there are cells that are predisposed to becoming insulin resistant, there are also cells that resist the resistant. Okay, yes, I look different. While I was editing this video, I was like, there has to be an easier way to explain the relationship between insulin resistance and PCOS. If I were to tell a friend why PCOS and insulin resistance are related, how would I actually tell them? Because PCOS and insulin resistance are related. Like, if you have PCOS, more than likely you have insulin resistance. And if they discover you have insulin resistance, it's more likely that you will develop PCOS. So why is that? Why do they seem to come hand in hand? And to better explain that, I'm actually going to use Dr. Benjamin Bikman's definition again, which is 1, you have cells in your body that are resistant to insulin, and 2, there is the presence of hyperinsulinemia. So how does that work? Well, there's parts of your body that are resistant to insulin. These parts are usually your muscles, your fat cells, and your liver cells. They get insulin resistant, but there are those that are resistant to insulin resistance. And these cells are often overstimulated by the hyperinsulinemia. They react to the excess insulin in our bodies, in our bloodstream. And this means, so for example, some of these cells happen to be in our ovaries, and their job is to convert testosterone, which is a normal, regular occurring hormone in our body, into estrogen. But in the presence of this excess insulin, these cells cannot do their job, meaning they cannot convert testosterone to estrogen. This means that there is no estrogen peak. The estrogen peak in our body causes ovulation. If there is no ovulation, then the follicles that are around our ovaries are not shed. And because they are not shed, they can develop cysts. So PCOS, it goes hand in hand because of the hyperinsulinemia. In the presence of excess insulin, there are certain parts of our body, in this case in our ovaries, that cannot do their job. In fact, one of the tests to see if you have PCOS or that you are insulin resistant is they look at your testosterone levels. So that's how it was discovered that I had PCOS. It came back that I had high testosterone levels. And the reason for that is because my body just couldn't function the way it was supposed to because my insulin levels were high, so I wasn't converting that testosterone to estrogen. And I never really thought of it that way before. I never really thought, oh, hey, there are parts of your body that are not going to develop this insulin resistance. But it's really the hyperinsulinemia that causes the problem, and it's the excess insulin in your bloodstream that makes it so certain parts of your body are not working the way they should be working. I now think of PCOS as the result of excess insulin in my body. And what I have found that while I was researching hyperinsulinemia, I found that hyperinsulinemia is actually the cause for a lot of the symptoms that I contributed to PCOS. I thought PCOS was the cause of these symptoms, but it turns out it's actually a result of excess insulin in my bloodstream. And while I was doing this research, I was like, this is me, this is me, this is me. I kept looking at all the symptoms and I just kept checking all the boxes and being like, this is what's wrong with me. It's like somebody looked at my life and they were making a list of everything that I have struggled with for years and like thought of, yeah, that's how I felt, like, because the very first thing on the list was hair loss. And hair loss is something that I have struggled with for a long time and tried to treat with shampoos, oils, potions, lotions. You know, you put all the things on your head and you think it will help. But it's actually a symptom, like a result of, they'll say female patterned hair loss is part of PCOS. Well, it's part of PCOS because that testosterone cannot be converted to estrogen in the presence of insulin. And that excess testosterone contributes to female hair loss. It also contributes to female facial hair growth, which, you know, no female wants to talk about how they're getting hair on their chin. But when you have PCOS, that's just part of your life. You can ask my husband, I pluck my hair on my chin. It's a daily thing. I have a little magnifying mirror and I look at it. And I also think that is probably why I have problems with acne. They say people with PCOS or hormonal will have acne around this area. And I think it's because they spend so much time trying to pull out hairs around their chin. They're touching everything, which, you know, you touch your face, you get acne from it. Another thing that they talked about was weight gain. Oh my gosh, the diets I have done. The years of my life I have spent dieting, trying to get things under control when my weight gain was a symptom of hyperinsulinemia. It was not that my weight gain was causing my PCOS. It was that it was a symptom, and that was something I didn't understand. Another one that I craved sugar all the time. Like, I craved sugar. I was hungry. I never felt full. You know what? Symptoms. All symptoms. Like the feeling frequently hungry. Like, I've said this before, that while I was eating, I would think about what I was going to eat next. And that's a common thing, because your hormones are out of whack. And I never thought of that as being a symptom. I just always asked myself, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get things under control? Why do I feel hungry all the time? Why do I have these sugar cravings? Another thing that was part of it was difficulty concentrating. Sorry. You may hear me laugh a lot. That's because I have nervous laughter. I was like, I don't want to talk about how I have difficulty concentrating. But the truth is that more than I used to, like, I will walk into a room and be like, why the heck did I walk into this room? And that was something that never used to happen to me, but I attribute it to, like, oh, well, I'm getting older. That is bound to happen. You have more things to think about, but that's actually one of the symptoms, the difficulty concentrating. Also, feeling anxious or panicky. Like, we went on vacation a few years ago for the specific purpose to ride roller coasters. Okay? So the first day we went, it was fine. I rode roller coasters. I had lots of fun. And then the next day we went to a different park to ride roller coasters, and they had, the very first one we got on, they had trouble. Like, the little harness that went around my waist had trouble. Like, I had to extend it, and I had trouble getting it in, and I couldn't twist right, and so I got all nervous and anxious. And for the rest of the day, whenever I got on the ride, I had a little mini panic attack. And I finally had to, like, tell my husband, and he was like, well, you didn't have any problem yesterday, but but panic attacks were something I had never had when I was younger. So it was something I developed later. Also, lack of focus, lack of motivation, fatigue. Oh my gosh, reading these, it just made me realize how much our hormones affect our daily lives. And how much we think that these little individual things, like, I'm like, okay, well, if I work on this, then that should help me take control. I should be able to focus better if I, like, write things down, if I do all these things. And so I spend a lot of time treating the symptoms. And that is why I turned to the carnivore diet. Why did I choose the carnivore diet? Why did I think the carnivore diet would be good for helping me with my insulin resistance, for helping me with my PCOS? Well, for the main thing is I wanted to stop treating the symptoms. And when I looked at it, my symptoms were caused by elevated insulin levels. And so in order to stop that, I needed to find a way to, I needed to level out my insulin levels. And I'm not talking just like, so I've said I've done lots of diets, and what looking at the carnivore diet has helped me realize is that a lot of my diets that I've chose have been the same diet with a different name. And a lot of them have been like heavy vegetable, heavy fruit, and like whole grains. That was a lot. Whenever I felt I wanted to be good, I turned to chicken breast. Oh my gosh, I've eaten so much chicken breast in my life. Vegetables and fruit. And I would do that, and I would keep doing it. And the problem is that after every diet, I would see my weight go down, and then it was unsustainable. I always felt tired. I could never stick with it. The sugar cravings, they never went away. And now I know they never went away because the things that I ate lots of things that would spike my insulin. Like, I loved fruit, and a lot of the diets I went on were like, that was their solution. They're like, instead of eating this cookie, eat this fruit. Eat these vegetables. And so I, not liking vegetables, that as much as I like fruit, I would always opt for fruit. This would mean on some days I would eat almost an entire pineapple. I would eat half a watermelon. I would eat 3 to 4 peaches, a couple nectarines, and I would do this. And the thing is because my calories were low, because the things I was eating were low in calories, I would see my weight go down, but it was a constant struggle. I was constantly struggling to stay on this diet because I always felt hungry. No matter what I did, no matter the amount of food I ate, my husband always was like, "You are always eating." And I was always eating. I was always grazing on something. And so my insulin levels were always high. This means that I was always craving sugar. I was always feeling hungry. I was always doing all these things that were the exact symptoms I was trying to get away from, were a result of my diet. And so the carnivore diet is the opposite of that. The carnivore diet is focused on foods that are meat, eggs, butter, animal-based foods like hard dairy that do not cause insulin spikes in order to keep your insulin levels low. So while I was looking up I didn't know what the carnivore diet was, but the first thing that I came across was actually this woman has only eaten meat for the last 13 years. And I looked at that and I was like, oh my gosh, is this like clickbait? Because, I don't know why this came up while I was looking for insulin resistance. Those were my exact thoughts. But a part of me was like, only eating meat. I haven't tried that one. So I clicked on it, and it happened to be, it was an interview with Kelly Hogan, and she was talking about how 13 years ago she had went to a doctor because she was having problems with boils. And while she was having problems with boils, her doctor was like, you should eat meat. Leafy greens won't kill you. And come see me in a year. We're going to keep having this problem over and over. And so she did it. And she lost weight. She ended up having a baby, like it helped with everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder what it would be like if I only ate meat. And then I was introduced to carnivore. And so I went down the carnivore. I went down that tunnel, and I started looking up more about it. And like, I found Dr. Benjamin Bickman, I found Dr. Barry, and I found Dr. Kiltz, who is like a reproductive specialist. And I was like, hey, they say that this way of eating can help me with every problem that I have ever had. And while I know it might not be for everyone to try eating only meat, I decided I have tried so much stuff that I might as well try this. I might as well try eating just meat. And so that is why I chose this diet. Not necessarily because I was like, oh, it's going to be a weight loss cure, or because I was like, oh, it's going to, when you start a new diet, if you've been on lots of diets, you probably think, hey, this might be the magical one that sticks. This might be the magical one that gives me the results I want. And I wanted to not think of it that way this time. And so I was like, you know what? This is the diet that's finally going to help me get my insulin under control, because hyperinsulinemia has been causing all these problems. And so I decided that I was going to quit treating the symptoms. And only treat the cause. And that is finding a way to control my insulin levels. And that is why I chose to start the carnivore diet, because I want to get my life together. I want to see results. I want to not worry about these things anymore. Thank you for watching my video, for sticking around this long. Please like and subscribe. If you have tried the carnivore diet, or if you have PCOS or insulin resistance, if you could let me know what has helped you in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.